Okay, today is Friday, March the 10th, 2023, and we're talking to William R. King Jr., and he's living here in Bayou Vista inside of the retirement community at Eagles Trace. So, why don't you say hi to your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
Hello there. Come see me.
Let's just start out, Dad, by talking about your dad, the
Okay.
things that you remember, and we'll get to you losing your dad later. But let's think about the good things, what the happy thoughts and happy memories you have of your dad.
Well, I guess the most common thing that I remember, maybe the earliest, was our bathroom did not have a did not have a bathtub or a shower. So the baths were maybe twice a week, and it was in a big, huge wash pot, that they wash clothes in. Metal type wash pot. And I remember Mother was feeling bad one day, and Dad was giving me a bath, and he was scrubbing me pretty hard, and I got angry with him about it. And I think I took a poke at him.
How old do you think you were?
Probably before school, about 5 or 6.
Okay. So you think you took a slap at your dad?
Well, kinda, yeah. And
How'd that go?
it didn't go well. He whipped me. He and Mother used to make me go out to get a switch off the tree limb or something, and I'd bring it back to him, and they'd switch me in the butt and the legs. And they weren't cruel with it. And it wasn't a regular event, but it was one you'd remember.
The point was to teach you a lesson,
Yeah,
and apparently you remembered it.
yeah, I do. We had a fig tree near the back of our house, and I used to climb the fig tree and eat figs when it got ripe, right off the tree. And it was near the back of the house. There was a lumber company that had an office on Main Street, and the lumber was in a big, huge shed that was directly behind our house. And of course, the kids around there found a way to get in on the weekends when they were locked up. We'd go under a little deal that we dug out to get in there.
Under the fence?
And we'd go in there and play on the weekends especially. I don't know that we ever got caught.
Because it was just, to you, it was a big playground?
Well, it was a 3-story, 2-story lumber yard with lumber stacked in different groups for the kind of lumber it was, the size.
So it's just a big place to have an adventure, play hide and seek and stuff like that?
Yeah. And there were
And hope none of it would fall on you?
There were 2 or 3 of us that would slip in and do that, on the weekends primarily. But it was right behind the house. It was directly by. There was nothing between us and the building that ran. Our house was like this, and this thing ran like this.
And so your dad worked at the post office as long as you remember.
That was, yeah. Mom and Dad both worked at the Pineville Insane Asylum, they called it then. And they worked as orderlies or something of that nature when they first moved to Pineville. And then Dad applied for the job at the post office after being there, I don't know how long, a year or two probably. And he had had military service, so they gave him credit for that. Although it was a brief period. World War I was going on when he got drafted, and he got out about 4 to 6 months later. The war ended and they get him out.
He never had to go abroad.
He was stationed in Arkansas someplace, and then Oklahoma.
He was in the Army, probably Fort Sill.
Could have been, I don't remember. But he applied for a job at the post office and got that, and he was called the city postman. He took all the streets up Main Street on both sides, and the little side streets that went like one block both ways. And he'd double back on the street. And
So he walked a route.
he walked around at first, yeah. And then when the post office moved to the new location at the other end of town, he was promoted to become chief clerk in the office. And that was the job he was in when he went to the bank that day and died in the bank. He was making the post office deposits when he had a heart attack. He had previously had another heart attack and was in the Veterans Hospital in Pineville for several months. Because back in those days, there wasn't much medicine for heart attacks, there was rest.
Right. And they had aspirin, but they didn't even know what aspirin did for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably right.
So, but before all this, I mean, so he worked probably 6 days a week. Do you reckon?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You don't? Do you remember him being around on Saturday?
No, I don't.
Do you remember going to church with him?
Yeah,
Was that an every week thing?
pretty much.
And was that driven more by your dad or by your mom?
My mom.
So your mom was a very devout Baptist. So she grabbed everybody by the ear and said, "You're going to church on Sunday." And that was what was that church? It was
First Baptist Church of Pineville.
kind of down on the other end of town, away from the river.
Right by the grammar school, next door to the grammar school. But that's the grammar school that burned, so you didn't know about it.
Okay, but isn't it kind of on the other end of downtown, away from the river?
Yeah,
Kind of-
considerably away from the river.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Okay, because I remember going to her funeral. Probably, I mean, I don't know if it's the only time I was in that church. Maybe Grandma took us when we were too little to remember to church. She probably did to show us off, right? But I do remember her funeral at that church, and I was probably in 3rd grade. So I was probably 8, 9. So I was maybe 9. I think she died in 71.
Well, you and Don were fairly young
Yeah,
at the time.
yeah. Well, let's stick to your dad, okay? Yeah, I mean, do you remember, like playing sports with him or playing catch with him and stuff like that?
Yeah, we played catch a lot, and he came up and in the afternoons at the school and helped the principal coach the team.
The baseball team?
The
football team?
Football team.
Okay. So your memory of your dad was he was a pretty good athlete.
Yeah, he was.
Was he? I mean, would you have an idea how tall he was? Did he seem taller than?
No, he was maybe 5'10".
Okay.
He was not that large like Carol. I mean, not nearly as tall as Carol. About like me, about
Okay.
my height.
Okay. Was he sort of country strong? Yeah, I mean, did he seem to you to be a pretty strong guy?
Yeah. And you know, the war was going on a lot back then,
World War II,
World War II.
right?
I was
So he was a little bit too old to have been dragged into that.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Carol was a little too young. Pretty lucky.
Both of them missed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Carroll could have enlisted on his own right there at the end of the war, but he chose not to.
Well, didn't you say he was 16 when your dad died?
Yeah.
Okay. And if I remember, your dad died in
45.
April of 45. He died like right, I mean,
Prime of life.
right. But I mean, he died right at the end. I mean, literally the week that Hitler killed himself might have been the same week that your dad died.
Yeah, we had I remember a newspaper article. I don't have any idea where it is. I guess Carol had it someplace. But we had a newspaper headlines, you know, the front page of the newspaper where the war ended. And Dad was still alive at that time.
Right.
When was that war ended?
Well, in Europe, I mean, Germany surrendered in April of 45, so same month as your dad died.
Well, I knew it was about the same
And the
time.
Japanese didn't surrender until September. We hadn't dropped the bombs on them yet. We did that in August, I think. Same summer, though. Yeah. So, when you were little, did you, entertainment was grabbing 2 or 3 buddies and getting on your bike and riding around and getting in trouble, or what? Or did you play on organized sports teams when you were little? Did you have that?
We had, when I was in the, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade, we had a baseball team and we went over to Alexandria. We would walk or ride the bikes over to Alexandria to the baseball parks that were open for the city park. And we would play other teams from Alexandria every Saturday morning.
So how far on the other side of the bridge would this park have been?
Oh, pretty far. I'd say 3 or 4 miles or more.
Okay. And so I just find this interesting because it's how times have changed. You know, I mean, your parents wouldn't have thought anything about letting a 5th grader ride his bike pretty
Across
much
town.
Anywhere in town, right?
Yeah.
Cross the bridge and go anywhere. Did you remember there being neighborhoods you probably shouldn't go to?
Well, there was a black neighborhood, 3 or 4
Continue your
streets
answer.
behind us. Yeah.
Okay. We'll stop now and restart.